Part 122. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1220. Latest website. Lu Feng has been paying attention to the reactions of the people below him. If most people are disgusted by what he said, then Lu Feng will definitely change the conversation and focus on comforting them. Individuals can never compete with the times. This is the case in this era. Everyone is trying to get out, and the moon abroad is indeed round. The development of our /U0026D companies is inseparable from these people. Once a hard confrontation occurs, everyone will be unhappy. That's all. Let's think about it in our own minds. We are not arrogant, nor are we working behind closed doors, but we need an opportunity for equal dialogue. I promise you one thing here. As long as the foreign semiconductor industry gives us an equal exchange given the opportunity, I will definitely establish cooperation as soon as possible. Everyone will definitely have the opportunity to learn from advanced companies, and the room for future progress will definitely be huge. Lu Feng looked around the scene and said, "As for me, that's all. If you have any ideas in the future, you can talk to Mr. Lu. If you don't want to tell him, you can also come to me. I'll tell you here. In short, we, the management, will serve you wholeheartedly and provide good service." There was applause at the scene. It was obvious that everyone was satisfied with Lu Feng's low profile. Lu Feng handed out his business card at the scene. It had his mobile phone number on it, so he could call at any time. He would definitely solve everything as quickly as possible. Dr. Chen didn't say anything, nor did he take Lu Feng's business card. Lu Feng didn't pay much attention to him. After saying a few words of concern to him with a smile on his face, he walked out of the conference room. Liukin followed behind, still secretly admiring Lu Feng's magnanimity. Talents are hard to find now. You have to coax these people. If they leave if they are unhappy, we will be in trouble. They say that shops bully customers and customers bully shops. It's the same thing, Lu Feng said casually towards Liukin. Dr. Chen seems to be in a bad mood. Do more work when you have time. What project is he in charge of? He has good abilities in chip design and core circuit development. He just graduated from the University of Texas at the beginning of this year. Maybe he is used to being there, and he is a bit yellow-skinned and white-hearted. Liukin followed and said. University of Texas? Your surname is Chen. Lu Feng stopped, looked at Liukin and asked, what is his full name? What major did he study? My full name is Chen Jin. I seem to be studying computer engineering. What's wrong? Liukin asked in confusion. My undergraduate degree is from Tongji University, right? Lu Feng asked again. Right. Tell him to get out of here non-stop, and fire him immediately. Lu Feng's expression suddenly changed, as if Dr. Chen had instantly turned into a god of plague. Liukin was already stunned on the spot and said blankly, why? Lu Feng thought about it for a moment. What would other people in the company think if he fired him at this time? I'm afraid many people will think that they are a smiling tiger, smiling on the surface, but turning around and telling others to get out, which will have a serious emotional impact on the company. This person doesn't need to be fired in such a hurry, but you are keeping an eye on me, especially when it comes to money. If there is any problem, I will remove him from his post. If he is making a fuss and wants to leave, then let him go, Lu Feng said. He asked Liukin, did you hear that clearly? Why? Liukin was still puzzled. People can't do it? Lu Feng didn't say much and walked forward. On the way home, Lu Feng was still wondering why all kinds of ghosts and monsters had been recruited. According to Chen Jin's original life trajectory, he should be at Motorola at this moment. After returning home, Lu Feng simply washed himself and fell asleep. On Wall Street and the foreign exchange market, for 10 consecutive days, the trading volume of the Thai baht has continued to increase, and the decline seems to have stabilized. Thailand has continuously issued protests to the outside world, and private high-level exchanges and meetings have continued. In the past 10 days, the whole world has been staring at the Thai baht. Some people are paying attention to the stock market, while others are wondering where Asia will go. The economic collapse of the Four Tigers, the Asian financial crisis, and the theory of collapse are all making noise. It seems that the countries on this continent are destined to be unable to hold on to even the lowest-end industries. Developed countries such as Europe and the United States are the hope of mankind. Representative of civilization. Arrogance makes ordinary people in the West think that the collapse of the Thai baht is a chain. This is a clue. In the exchange rate market, a large number of sell orders were thrown out. Everyone in the trading room looked at the numbers on the display in silence, and occasionally someone whispered, "I can't bear it any longer. They can't resist tonight." There is a huge short-selling force, no one is optimistic about them. It is surprising that they can reach this day, a monarchy country. He. Someone laughed, and the atmosphere seemed less tense for a moment. In Bangkok, Thailand, everyone in the Foreign Exchange Bureau just stared at the screen. At this moment, the atmosphere in the room was almost frozen. The leaders nearby frowned and asked the people next to them, communicating in low voices. It is expected that the funds will bottom out today. The power of short selling has obviously strengthened in the past few days. Not only international hot money, but also many retail investors have joined in. Can you survive tonight? I don't know. 6 companies on Wall Street issued research reports today, and many companies in the City of London have joined in. There is a lot of pressure. Didn't you communicate with European countries by phone? We've had a phone call and they said they would exercise restraint and that they couldn't stop companies from having free business activities. The rapid transaction data on the screen kept refreshing. The Deputy Minister of Finance went out and called Maha for instructions. Maha on the other end of the phone asked about the preparations in Europe and was told that they were ready yesterday. Then let's do it tonight. You call them first and make an agreement before we start. Okay. At 1 o'clock at midnight, Lu Feng was sleeping soundly. The phone kept ringing. He got out of bed, grabbed the phone and said confusedly, "Who is it?" "Mr. Lu, I am Prince Maha's translator. I am now officially informing you that the plan will be implemented tonight. Please be prepared." The translator's voice came from the other end of the phone. "Okay, got it." Lu Feng's anger dissipated a lot. He rubbed his face with his hands and sat down to call manager Li. At the same time, Su Yorong, Jenkin, and Sean all received calls. Within 10 minutes, traders were sitting in front of trading computers in many places around the world, monitoring Thai baht data in real time. Half an hour later, Maha issued an order, requiring all long funds under his control to withdraw, allowing the short funds to run rampant and fall into the water freely. In the United States, at 11 o'clock at noon, in addition to focusing on the foreign exchange, most of the people in the exchange were looking at the Thai baht. The funds of the two sides were competing against each other. The long side had become particularly weak, and the price was also falling a little bit. Obviously, it takes time for the short-selling force to grow. Even if the long-selling parties are exhausted, it is no longer easy to continue short-selling at this price. I think so too, and I now feel that shorting the Thai baht is very dangerous. So many media are advocating shorting the Thai baht, which is obviously a ladder for big funds. Otherwise, how can people climb out? Everyone was muttering, and suddenly, the trader sitting inside yelled, as if he had encountered something terrible, and then other traders also yelled, shouting fake. What happened? Collapse. Collapse. The Thai baht collapsed. What? The crowd at the scene was in a commotion. People who were doing business at the window, or people who had their own computers in the big rooms, were staring at the computer screen as if they had seen a ghost. In just an instant, All long funds were withdrawn. The short side lost support and stepped short. The K line drew a straight and long drop line. The price instantly changed from 48 yuan to 72 yuan. At this moment, all currency transactions on the screen in the hall disappeared, and the price of 72 baht per US dollar was displayed in a large display. 72. 72. Fake sounds were heard everywhere, and everyone's faces were filled with disbelief. How could this happen? Such a rapid collapse speed was unheard of by them. It is estimated that only Bitcoin in later generations can compare with it. I should be shorting, why didn't I? Who just told me that shorting the Thai baht is dangerous now? Should this be the end? What happened to Thailand? Did God throw them into the sun? What happened? There was a war. No one knew what was going on. Everyone was calling people in Thailand to find out what was going on. At this moment, Quantum Fund and Tiger Fund seemed extremely calm. They knew why all this happened. Saras looked at the data in the trading market. As the price fell to 72 yuan, the trading volume plummeted rapidly. No one dared to. It is easy to go short at this time, and no one dares to go long easily. At this moment, it is time to flee. Call the Schroeder Group and ask them to increase the trading volume. Ask their major fund managers to call their clients and buy Thai baht, Saras ordered to his assistant. Road. I called and the person on the other end said that the call would be reported immediately and then hung up. In the office, John listened to the report slowly, looked at the managers next to him, and said, "They make money, and the Europeans pay the bill. Where can such a good thing happen? Besides, aren't our customers human beings? Being stuck on the Thai baht may not be unstuck in the next 10 years. What about this? Wait a minute, we have to do what was explained above, and we also need to explain below. The loss can't be too obvious, otherwise the customers will curse." John said to several managers, after the calculation, "We can't let them earn too much." Everyone smiled understandingly, they were all just living on the road. Where are the good people? Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1221. Latest website. Quantum Fund and Tiger Fund both have high trading volume at the moment. They have made too much at this price. It is not easy to escape now that they are full. They need to convert their US dollars into Thai baht and return the Thai baht plus interest to the banks and institutions that leased it to them. However, no one is willing to sell at such a low price. Their rash purchase of large quantities will only cause the price to rise rapidly and cause market panic. Retail investors and institutions that originally followed them in short selling will also rush to buy Thai baht and close their positions. Produce stampede behavior. Therefore, what we need to wait for now is for a large investor to dump a large amount of Thai baht and let these two funds flee. In China, countless foreign exchange speculators are cheering at the moment, and many of them are crying and disturbing their neighbors. Don't sleep, get up, there's great news." The man hurried into the back room wearing slippers. "Are you crazy? Is there something wrong with your brain when you speculate in foreign exchange?" The woman opened her eyes drowsily and cursed, "I will send you to a mental hospital tomorrow. The child is sleeping and will go to school tomorrow. We're rich. Our family is rich. You don't know." The Thai baht suddenly collapsed. It dropped from more than 40 to 72 in a snap. Your mother, never dare to think about such a thing in my life. Let me caught. Oh, God bless us, we have this fate. The manager in the United States a few days ago was right, the whole of Asia is going to collapse. I will call him soon and change the US dollars into Thai baht. The man was talking to himself, bowing in all directions from time to time, looking lost in thought. "How much do you earn?" The woman also became more energetic and sat up from the bed. "Our family invested 150,000 yuan, and I mortgaged the house to Mr. Hu. I didn't tell you about this. When it was 34 yuan, I converted our 150,000 yuan into US dollars, and then rented it in Thai baht. We opened a short order, now it's 72 yuan, as long as we redeem it and return it to the institution, the rest is all ours, the man said excitedly. Don't tell me this, I don't understand. Just tell me how much money you make, the woman asked urgently. More than double, 160,000 to 70,000 yuan, the man stood beside the bed and said proudly, how's it going? You're a great man, right? You've earned 160,000 to 160,000 to 70,000 yuan in just half a month. Dad is so awesome, I want to eat KFC, the child also shouted. The man promised again and again. At midnight, the family was full of happiness and everyone was enjoying a bright future. The man put down his bold words and said that by this time next year, $300,000 would become tens of millions of dollars. Wall Street kept calling the financial city, asking them to sell the baht as soon as possible and increase the volume at the bottom. At the same time, they should stabilize retail investors and other institutions and make them think that there are still opportunities to short the baht, so that the two companies can easily escape. At noon, the Wall Street Journal published an article that analyzed all aspects of Thailand's industry. Financial bosses believed that the Thai baht still existed in a bubble, and the bottom stage should be at a price of 100 baht to $1. Managers of all kinds swarmed out on TV and radio to induce the public to short the Thai baht. In China, it was already 3 o'clock in the middle of the night. Lu Feng sat in front of the phone and listened to the feedback from Manager Li. As an experienced exchange rate financier, he was a little confused at the moment. Where had he seen such a decline in a sovereign currency? Mr. Lu, the current situation is that both volume and price have dropped, hovering at the bottom. We need to wait for funds to enter the market. If there are no funds to enter the market, we will only encounter siege if we enter rashly. Judging from KDJ and MACD, it has already appeared. Departure from. I paid you to come here to do technical analysis. You don't have to worry so much, just wait for my news after Lu Feng said. He took out his mobile phone and called assistant Maha. In Thailand, within an hour, they prepared the final funds, 3.5 billion US dollars. During this hour, they communicated with the Federal Reserve, and at the same time communicated with the US military, Congress, and other parties. Regarding this, strong protest was expressed. Maha seemed very angry on the phone. If you dare to let me die, I will lie in the coffin. If the government intervenes next, they will be responsible for the consequences. If they want to restage the Saigon moment here, then come on. The call was not only made to the United States, but also to several neighboring big countries. At this moment, countless eyes were staring at the situation in front of them. After all the phone calls that needed to be made, Maha got his father's order and made a phone call to the Administration of Foreign Exchange with one sentence, bang. Half of the planet was asleep. At this moment, various voices sounded in front of every trading computer in the Administration of Foreign Exchange. 72 yuan, eat it all. 70 yuan, eat it all. 65 yuan, eat it all. The Thai baht, which had been hovering at the bottom for an hour, suddenly exploded. The straight line that rose up seemed to be a response to the decline, and it pulled straight up. In the New York Stock Exchange, the sound of fake was everywhere. No one could sit safely at this moment. Everyone stood with their hands covering their mouths, their faces full of disbelief. Throw it. Throw it quickly. It's liquidated. It's liquidated. Stop it, please stop it, it's going to happen. I'm going to go through the humming hole. Sell it for me, exchange it for Thai baht, and go long Thai baht. The retail investors who just listened to the financial expert fainted immediately. The short-selling line of 72 yuan was destined to be redeemed at a high price. The scene was in chaos. The number of Thai baht against the US dollar beat faster than the heartbeat. There was no resistance along the way. As the defense line of retail investors was broken, retail investors began to stampede, and everyone began to redeem Thai baht regardless of the cost. At the same time, Thailand's Foreign Affairs Department held a press conference and contacted media from the United States and many European countries by phone. The spokesperson said on the phone that Thailand's economy is strong and its industries are balanced. There are indeed some minor problems, but the annual GDP growth can remain at 5%. The spokesperson also released a number of real data to the public. After the live broadcast of the TV media, retail investors have completely surrendered. The Thai baht rose from 72 yuan to 36 yuan in one breath, and began to fluctuate sideways. At this moment, there is only 1 hour left before the closing. Quantum Fund and Tiger Fund were silent inside, and everyone's faces were full of sadness. As long as the Thai baht returned to 30 yuan, they would be close to the loss line. Trading volume has increased, redeem the baht now, a manager suggested. Saras looked furious when he heard this, pointed his finger at the other person and shouted, "I am informing you now that you are fired." Now redeemed, what else is left but a mad stampede? They stopped pulling after 36 yuan. The only thing left is to let these funds and institutions step on each other and let the Thai baht return to 25 yuan. Saras will never jump into this pit. Call Schroeder. Let's leave part of the way first and let him try to throw 500 million, after Saras said, he suddenly became furious and yelled at his assistant, "Don't let those bad guys wait any longer." The news was playing on the TV in the trading room. Saras stared at the TV for a long time. He picked up the phone and called the Federal Reserve first, hoping to increase the Thai baht loan, but was rejected. Then he called Robertson and answered the phone, "Don't be nervous. I saw their vulnerability. Our contract still has 10 days. I will run out a batch in a while to return the contract that expires in 3 days, they won't last long. I know. I heard that they called many people. I guess their remaining foreign exchange does not exceed 4 billion. If this high level cannot be maintained, it will be destroyed in no more than 10 days, Robertson said. The two of them have perfect control over Thailand's funds. This situation cannot be maintained by a pool of funds, but requires long-term international funds. The depreciation of the Thai baht is a definite matter. It is just a question of how much it will depreciate. Compared with the 50% depreciation in the previous life, this life may not be so severe. If nothing else, even if it is less than 5 points, for a country words are a huge wealth. In John's office, the assistant came in and briefly explained the situation. John took a sip of coffee calmly, stood up, and said, "The Thai baht is returning to its glory. Since they want to take away 500 million, then let's spend 500 million, try it." 5 minutes later, a sell order worth 20 million was placed, and then it was eaten in less than a second, followed by another 20 million. Everyone in the exchange became nervous. The people who had exchanged their money for Thai baht were staring at it, secretly thinking, "Don't fall down. If it falls back again, you will lose money and die. Those who have not cut the profit will die. They are taking advantage of it. Money, I lost money, it was so uncomfortable." The one who has not cut his flesh is now thinking about making a big short position, smashing the bulls to death, and driving the price directly to 100 yuan. In China, the man was going crazy listening to the radio and shouted, "Smash it! Smash it quickly! Go back to 70 yuan! No, 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 just go back to 50 yuan, just let me out. It's so noisy. Why are you shouting if you don't sleep at night? Are you crazy?" the neighbor yelled. "You, are you looking for death? I'm not alive anymore, the man rushed out and kicked the neighbor's door wildly. The woman was sitting on the bed. The excitement from more than an hour ago had disappeared. Her eyes were dull and she was just shedding tears silently. In the financial market, the distance between heaven and hell is very close. In extreme cases, a millionaire in 1 second will be a millionaire in the next. A debt of tens of millions per second. Soros escaped with 300 million yuan at the price of 36 yuan, and with the remaining 200 million yuan, he wanted to test the strength of the multiple parties. Judging from the market trading volume, he pulled it back to 36 yuan and maintained the shock. They more than 3 billion have been consumed. As sales orders were thrown out one after another, the funds of the Thai Foreign Exchange Bureau dried up. In the last 15 minutes, the Thai baht fell below 38 yuan. In an instant, everyone became excited, and the plummet was right in front of them. Latest website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1222. Latest website. The price is dropping step by step, and now that it has lost financial support, the price of the Thai baht will fall rapidly. It is likely that it will only take 100 million to drop it, and it will immediately return to more than 70 yuan. The person in charge of finance realized this problem and immediately called the European delegation to ask them to be prepared and requested that the Thai baht price be set at 35 yuan at the close of trading today. When the price dropped to 39 yuan, a wave of funds rushed in and spent $200 million to raise the price of the Thai baht in a straight line, and then fluctuated at the price of 35 yuan. Retail investors were devastated, and many popular people on the exchange even used trash cans to vent their anger. With less than 10 minutes left before the close, John threw out another $50 million in Thai baht as a test. The rebound was particularly strong and he was eaten directly. In front of the trend chart, Soros frowned as he looked at the transaction details and asked, which exchange did the funds escape from? The exchange began to search for the source of these trading funds, and after a few minutes it replied, Europe, Ireland, Germany, the Netherlands, Spain, and France. The one that bought the most is called the second sales department of Lazare Unity Road. He frowned and remained silent, looking at the computer screen for a long time. It wasn't until the transaction was over that he slowly said, who is this? After Soros and Robertson talked on the phone, they agreed that there was a problem in Europe. No one knew how much money there was. Once they could resist for 10 days, they would be really finished. Soros immediately contacted European countries, especially France, through his superiors, asking them to provide the user data of this business department, but was rejected. The trading time has ended, but the game between all parties has just begun. In China, at 4 o'clock in the middle of the night, Lu Feng heard that the transaction was over and yawned as he went upstairs. When he woke up, it was already noon. Not long after he woke up, Lu Feng received a call from Su Yorong. Many important media in Thailand announced important articles publish comprehensive data such as port data, currency data, industrial production value, M2 liquidity, real estate, and the number of investment projects completed. The article does not shy away from economic problems, but lays out all the data. Finally, it concludes that economic growth has indeed encountered resistance, but the decline is not that big. The situation will be reversed through industrial upgrading and state-led investment. He also criticized the aggressive short selling of the Thai baht, believing that these short sellers were making a fuss out of a molehill, taking advantage of insufficient foreign exchange reserves and cracking down on gaps in the anchor exchange rate. Thailand has given up on anchoring the exchange rate, and the dollar reserve issue has also received support from the international community. There is no problem. There are even rumors in the world that the Thai baht is indeed not worth the exchange rate of 25 to 1 US dollar, but it has dropped to 30 yuan at most. The 20% drop has shown the Thai baht's super value. Last night I kept staring at the transaction data. To tell the truth, I was scared in the face of such a huge transaction volume. Even in the last 10 minutes, the transaction volume was sluggish, but there was still a transaction volume of more than 3 billion baht. It felt like the world all the Thai baht has been found Su Yorong side. Normally, those people are eager to borrow all the Thai baht in the world, but don't worry too much. According to my estimation, they won't be able to survive for a few days, and there will basically be little follow-up funds, Lu Feng comforted. Su Yorong is in the stock market. The current daily trading volume of the entire Xiangjiang stock market is only 5 billion US dollars, and it is even less when it comes to individual stocks. She is just worried that such a large trading volume will not be able to handle it live. Even if there are ports, minerals, and arms as collateral, no one wants to lose money. You should keep an eye on her for the next few days. It will only last a day or two. I have a call here. Hang up first, Lu Feng said and hung up. The person who picked up the call at home was from above, mainly asking about the situation of the Thai baht. After discussion with experts, they thought it would be best to end it this week, that is, before December 25. If the stalemate continues, international cooperation will be needed. Mediation was made, mainly because if Thailand continues to be locked down like this, big problems will arise. Lu Feng said he would convey his meaning. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng sat on the sofa and breathed a long sigh of relief. He felt that the moment of final battle was coming. The day of lending by the short sellers on Wall Street was coming, and Thailand was also blocked for almost half of the year. If it goes on for a month, both sides will suffer losses. I called Maha and briefly explained the situation and asked them what they thought. They also said that they would kill the short side as soon as possible. The most important thing was that Sean encountered the situation and some Wall Street companies contacted him directly. I went to the sales department and spent some manpower and material resources to find Sean. They found Sean. Lu Feng was shocked. It had only been a long time before he was found. They did find Sean through some registration information, but this friend of yours is not an ordinary person. He found someone with the same name to register, so he called us a little urgently, asking to keep his identity confidential, and hoping that it would be done quickly. The battle is over quickly. Wall Street today is already encouraging retail investors to rush in. Today's trading volume will reach its peak, so be prepared and pay more attention to the situation over there, the translator said. Lu Feng was already stunned. He never dreamed that Wall Street's financial investigation capabilities were so strong. A cunning guy like Sean was almost caught out. Wasn't he already exposed? You must know that Lu Feng's funds went through HSBC, Su Yorong opened the account, and the securities company he was affiliated with was United Capital. It would only take a few phone calls to get to the bottom of it. Okay, I get it. Lu Feng hung up the phone, feeling a little scared about Wall Street today. Wall Street in the 1990s was unimaginable to Lu Feng more than 20 years later, not to mention there were a lot of surveillance activities that he knew were going on at this moment. This world is transparent, Lu Feng sighed. But Lu Feng didn't care. He was already a thorn in his side. With such skill, the big guys on Wall Street probably guessed that it was him. In the afternoon, Zhang Xiaoyan, who had been on a business trip for a few days, suddenly returned home. She went upstairs to grab 2 folders and hurriedly left. Let's go after dinner, Lu Feng said to her. I'm not going to eat. I'm so busy. The factory in Tianjin has been decided. The assembly line will be set up in the next few days. It will be put into production in April next year at the earliest. I will have a meeting with the backbone to send a few trustworthy people there. Someone who is capable enough. Zhang Xiaoyan put the folder into her bag, looked at Lu Feng and asked, "Are you so free?" "I just went to the company during this time," Lu Feng replied. Zhang Xiaoyan stood there and thought about it for a while and said, "If you have so much free time, go to Tianjin and help me build a factory. By the way, I can expand sales channels and compete in the market." Huh? Lu Feng looked at her and was speechless. He was treating himself as a free labor force. Was such a complete set of things just a matter of course in her mouth? "I can go, but what if the earth explodes tomorrow?" Zhang Xiaoyan rolled her eyes, held her bag and then said, "You really think of yourself as the head of the earth now? You have to eat on time even if you're busy." "I've lost weight," Lu Feng said with concern. "I know, watch your homework." Zhang Xiaoyan's voice came from outside the door, followed by the sound of a car starting. In the evening, Wei Yandan called and said that they could not push forward the privatization of the R/U0026D company. John had not communicated with him in the past few days. Gudley kept urging Lu Feng to come forward. The municipal government also hoped to resolve it as soon as possible. Both parties were involved. Under pressure, Wei Yandan felt that Lu Feng would meet first, sit down and have a chat, and then they would talk. "I'm not free these days, but in a few days, I guess John won't be free either, so you don't have to worry about it for a few days," Lu Feng ordered. At nightfall, Duo came back with a big school bag on his back. After dinner, he looked weak. He lay on the sofa and complained, "There is too much homework. Write slowly and watch less cartoons. Your mother is back today and asked me to watch you do your homework." Lu Feng looked at her and said, "If you do well in the midterm exam, I will let you go back to your hometown for the new year." Duo immediately became energetic when he heard that he was going back to his hometown. He sat up and said, "Will the whole family go back?" "Not necessarily," Lu Feng said and looked at the clock on the wall. The foreign exchange market was about to start in an hour. Duo was doing homework downstairs. In order not to disturb her, Lu Feng went to the study room on the third floor and called Manager Li. "Wall Street, it's a new day." After yesterday's close, the Thai baht instantly became a hot topic among the public. Even non-financial programs began to discuss this topic. The views of the guests on these programs continue to guide people to short the Thai baht. It seems that now is the best time to short the baht. Chance. In Thailand, the baht rose, but then there was a lack of funds, followed by a series of plummets. Such inducing words are simply child's play for professionals, but for the middle class, who have a little money but no suitable way to preserve value, this kind of thing that seems to be a sure profit without losing money is simply pie in the sky. Some Wall Street investment institutions inquired about the number of customers shorting the Thai baht more than 10 times in one day. For them, various fees will be incurred as long as they trade. As for whether the customer loses or makes a profit, they don't care. At 8 o'clock in the morning, the foreign exchange market opened, and the New York Stock Exchange was already crowded with people. A new display screen dedicated to Thai baht was added to the hall to display the Thai baht price at the right time. As the market opened, the first batch of retail investors directly opened short orders without saying a word, selling 300 million baht. The baht instantly fell by 0.5 points. Then a large number of short orders were opened, indicating a strong seller's market. "It will fall, it will definitely fall. I read the news about Thailand. They are all lying. This is a huge lie." Professor Kyle said that the hollowing out of Thailand's industry is particularly serious, and as commodity prices rise, they have no profit margins and factories will be shut down on a large scale. Who is Professor Kyle? A highly respected economist who studies Asian economies. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1223. Latest website. When others heard about The Economist, They immediately felt that it was reliable and listened carefully. Economists believe that the global economic center is the United States and Europe. The rise of the four tigers in recent years is due to the transfer of low-end industries. In the future, Asia is expected to be inferior to Africa. Yesterday I watched an expert's comment on TV. Judging from the technical indicators, the Thai baht is purely a flashback, a retracement. This is a standard 3 sale price. You raise your head to hit it deeper, another person vowed. Road. Whether it is the big macro index or the market, it is not very good. Moreover, I have also paid attention to the number of containers at Thailand's ports. Imports and exports are declining. The data they release is not credible. People around him nodded, and when they looked up, the Thai baht, which had been struggling, was suppressed by the huge sell orders. Some people couldn't bear it anymore and ran over to place short orders. Quantum Fund and Tiger Fund are still out of ammunition. At this moment, in addition to placing their hopes on retail investors, the rest is to look to other colleagues on Wall Street. However, the big capital on Wall Street dare not give up easily, such as companies like Morgan and Goldman Sachs. At the end of the day, there will really be a war. Large companies did not give up, and private equity institutions were very busy. In the first half hour of the opening of the market, institutions sold hundreds of millions of dollars worth of baht, which made the European group unable to lift its head. The value of the Thai baht fluctuates back and forth between 35 and 38, and the trading volume continues to rise. It is destined to be a fierce battle for both bulls and bears. Saras frowned as he looked at the market. It seemed that Lasse's second sales department didn't listen to his warning at all. What kind of funds were behind it? The calls came one after another from small institutions. They spent hundreds of millions without making a big splash. They called just to find out who the opponent was. Tell them that this is Thailand. This is the end of the road for them. If you invest more, they can smash it. After Saras ordered the assistant, he added, contact some private equity and find managers who can trade and let them end. Within an hour of the opening, $3 billion worth of Thai baht had been sold. The long side was holding on to 38 yuan. For the short sellers, 38 yuan seemed to be an insurmountable chasm. Saras watched for a while, then picked up the phone and called Robertson. On the phone, the two of them chatted about who the second sales department of Lasse was. Neither of them had a clue, let alone where the funds came from. But I have new news. Do you remember Lu Feng? Robertson asked. Lu Feng, Saras thought for a while and asked, the one from China. Yes, he is the mastermind of this matter. I learned through my friends in Thailand that he introduced European funds. However, this matter is highly confidential and he does not know who it is. Robertson was angry. Said, this matter should be blamed on him. Saras sat there for a long time and said, Lambert is right, this is a troublemaker. We don't know how much money our opponents have. If we let them resist, there will be a stampede escape. Even if Schroeder Group comes in to relieve us, we will definitely lose money. Robertson's voice lost confidence. Then what do you mean? I think retail investors' funds have bottomed out. They are clinging to 38 yuan. If they can't sell it today, they will pull it up tomorrow. If retail investors have weak endurance, we really won't be able to escape. Now contact Lu Feng and find out the bottom. Robertson suggested. Although this phone call is a bit humiliating, in financial transactions, it is normal to contact the opponent by phone if you can't win, or even reconcile privately. I have spoken to him before and contacted him, but I have to make two preparations. If you contact some private equity institutions and spend another 2 billion, if you still can't do it, then there is really nothing you can do, Ross said. After the two agreed, they hung up the phone. Saras asked his assistant to help dial Lu Feng's number. Even though it was already midnight in China, he knew that Lu Feng was definitely not asleep. The study was filled with smoke. Zhang Xiaoyan took Lu Feng's mobile phone and went up to the third floor. She opened the study door and said, "Can I charge my mobile phone here? Someone is calling you and it keeps ringing." Lu Feng took the phone and asked, "Who is it?" "I don't know." "Why are you staying up late at night to stay up?" "What time is it?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked with a frown. "I've been busy with overseas affairs these days. You should go to bed first." "I won't disturb you," Lu Feng said to her. Zhang Xiaoyan didn't say anything more, turned around and went downstairs. Lu Feng waited for a minute, and then his cell phone rang. He picked up the phone and said, "Who is this?" "Hello, Mr. Lu," the person on the phone spoke pure English. When Lu Feng heard the voice, he thought about it for a moment, and immediately understood that the other party couldn't handle it anymore. He could figure out who it was with a little guessing. "Hello, I haven't called you in a long time," Lu Feng said politely. "Do you know who I am?" the other end said in surprise. Lu Feng laughed a few times and said, "I guess it's Mr. George Soros." "Wow wow. I have to say that you are really smart. Talking to a smart person like you is too convoluted and boring, so let me get straight to the point. Can you tell me where the funds in Europe come from?" Soros asked very directly. "Of course Europe's money belongs to the European people. I don't know much about the rest," Lu Feng said with a smile. "Okay. I know you won't say it. I'm calling you just for one thing. We don't mean to stand against Thailand. We are helping her. I believe you should understand Thailand's internal problems. Too many bubbles are not conducive to her development. Only when short sellers like us squeeze the bubble, Thailand will go further. So we are not in confrontation, our ultimate goal is the same." Soros came up and said, "First clarify your role." "Wow, you are so righteous. It's already midnight here, and I don't have the energy to argue with you. Even if you are the Takumi bird in the financial world, if you want to say anything, just say it," Lu Feng asked. "Our goals are the same, so there are no enemies, and there is no confrontation. The idea of my calling you is very brief. Everyone let each other go. At the end of today, you released $5 billion. Of the Thai baht, we promise not to continue to short the Thai baht and leave everything to the invisible hand of the market," Soros said. "I need to make a call about this." "Okay, I'll wait for your call." After the two parties hung up the phone, Lu Feng immediately called Maha. It would be best if this famous currency sniper war in history can be reconciled. There are many uncertainties in the market. They want 5 billion baht. Sean has billions of baht, just let Sean earn 10 points and leave. Everyone is not so worried. After the phone call was made, after Lu Feng explained the situation, Maha agreed to the plan and contacted Sean. The other side was even more eager to ask for it. Whether it was the short side or the long side, everyone felt huge pressure and couldn't figure out how much money the opponent had. Smash it down. You can make hundreds of millions in a few days with little risk. For Sean, this is like a golden rain from the sky. Wall Street, at 1 o'clock at noon, Robertson called Soros. He contacted 4 private equity institutions. After giving enough rebates, he raised another $2 billion. After communicating with each other, the two thought that the other party agreed so easily. There are no additional conditions, which means that the opponent's funds are almost exhausted. There are still 2 billion, plus some scattered retail investors. If the attack is successful, not only will the profits be huge, but the most important thing is that Thailand will beg them. Finance is a huge gamble. Online gambling is about the market and funds, while offline is blocking sales, supply, and profits. The losing party has no chance other than to be spared. In many cases, it is just a stud. The situation has reached the point where it is today. All the big shots in the world know what is going on, so they collect the funds in disgrace. Where is the face? Cyrus only hesitated for a moment and immediately agreed. A few minutes later, a large number of selling orders quickly appeared on the originally quiet market. The long side was obviously unprepared. The K-line dived directly through 38 yuan, reaching 38.5, followed by 39 yuan. It's over 38. It's over 38. It's really going to collapse this time. After everyone in the exchange exclaimed, someone immediately ran to open a short order and followed the main force to take a hot bite. Lu Feng was stunned when he heard Manager Li's report on the phone and shouted, "Did they smash it again? The buyer has already reacted." He rushed up to say 38, but was immediately beaten back. Now it is 39.6. The transaction volume has increased. In a few minutes, 600 million baht was traded. There are more short orders. Many retail investors have ended up with a lot of small orders, Manager Li reported. Lu Feng's expression suddenly changed. He slammed the table and cursed, "These guys came over to explore the bottom." Just after cursing, the phone rang, and Sean called to inquire about the situation. According to the current trading volume, their funds may not be able to survive the last half hour. If it collapses in the late trading, they will definitely not be able to get it back tomorrow. I don't believe how much money they have. You can report the financial situation at any time. I'll make preparations here. I'll call Prince Maha and tell him about the situation, Lu Feng said with a solemn expression. Lu Feng, the funds on Wall Street are still huge. I have one request right now, and that is that once the funds cannot be withdrawn, the collateral must be obtained, Sean said in a low voice. They don't have that much money, don't worry. Lu Feng hung up the phone and called Maha. The man on the other end was so angry that he yelled at his mother, but there was nothing he could do. He could only hold on for dear life. Xiao En was beaten, and Lu Feng fought back. If Lu Feng fell, it would really be a disaster. All bets are off. We have fought for the last half hour, and tomorrow's opening is also a problem, so there is only one way, to raise interest rates. Tomorrow we will raise interest rates on the Thai baht, so that the Thai baht scattered around the world can flow back. There are no more Thai bahts in the market, and they can't borrow it. Then there is only a dead end, Lu Feng suggested, and most of the Thai baht should be in our hands now, and the remaining ones don't have much money and can't cost much interest. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1224. Latest website. Maha agreed to this plan. As long as a small amount of Thai baht flows back to Thailand, there will be very few Thai bahts that can be traded internationally. In this way, if Cyrus wants to escape, he has to find someone with Thai baht in hand. For such a large amount, is there any other way besides buying it from Sean and Lu Feng? At that time, the control will be in the hands of Lu Feng and the others. There are about 40 minutes left before the closing, and the pressure on the market is getting bigger and bigger. Looking at this kind of trading volume, Manager Li feels a lot of pressure. In his report with Lu Feng, he mentioned the risk of the Thai baht. The short-selling funds are too fierce and cannot be used. It is recommended to go long. What I want is an operator, not here to teach me how to invest. What is the current price? Lu Feng asked towards the phone. 39 yuan and 63 cents, 72 cents, 80 cents, Manager Li's voice was trembling, and he said, there are 5 billion baht hanging on the selling plate, and the small orders are being smashed. Lu Feng lit a cigarette, took a deep breath and said, be prepared, first prepare 100 million to support the bottom between 40 yuan and 41 yuan. After placing the order, pay attention to the trend. Once the big funds rush out, immediately get on top. In Europe, Sean's brows were almost glued together. He stood in front of the operator and kept staring at the sell orders. He only had less than 300 million in funds left, but there was a sell order of 5 billion baht hovering above him. He knew very well that this was just an appetizer. The other party probably has tens of billions of baht waiting to be spent. Is there no news? Sean asked his assistant. Are you not sure which Wall Street institutions are in trouble? The assistant shook his head awkwardly. What do we raise you for? Raising a bunch of pigs is better than you, Sean yelled angrily, and then scolded. Call Lu Feng, tell him our current financial situation, and ask him, is the 100 million below his funds? When the phone call came, Lu Feng told them that it was his own funds and briefly explained the situation. While he was talking, a batch of unsolicited sales orders directly hit 42 yuan. In the quantum funds trading room, Robertson stared at the monitor with intense eyes. The coffee next to him had gone cold, and he didn't even have time to take a sip. Let the private equity institutions continue to smash their money and see how much money they have. In the last short period of time, the strong will be strong, and the weak will perish, Robertson ordered to the assistant on the side. Tell them, don't be afraid, just rush over, retail investors will help. Our retail investors don't care about right or wrong, they help whoever wins. After Robertson finished speaking, he murmured to himself, retail investors are ruthless capital, they are blood-sucking gadflies. The pressure on the market increased instantly. Tens of billions of baht were thrown out instantly. At a price of 40.68 cents, calculated in US dollars, the transaction was US $270 million. In just an instant, Sean was completely beaten. Paralyzed, the last trace of funds in hand has been exhausted. If Lu Feng hadn't set up defense at the position of 41, the situation would definitely have collapsed. The hesitant retail investors would have pounced on him in an instant. By then, it would have been an overwhelming situation. Hold 41. 41 cannot be broken, Lu Feng shouted at the phone, take the initiative and buy in. Go back to 40. In the New York Stock Exchange, everyone's eyes are focused on the Thai baht at the moment. The huge trading volume in a short period of time makes many people feel the strong smell of gunpowder. Obviously, before today's close, the two parties will decide the outcome. 150 million US dollars rushed into the market, swallowing up the pressure above, and instantly raising the price to 40 yuan and 16 cents, sweeping away the previous decline, and it was quite a rampage. In the quantum fund trading room, Cyrus frowned when he saw this technique. The manager next to him made a prepared judgment based on his years of experience, change the dealer. Cyrus began to feel something was wrong. He raised the price to 40 yuan and spent nearly 200 million yuan. The new banker seemed to be very confident. He turned to his assistant and said, ask the private equity institution how much money it has left. Lu Feng listened to Manager Lee's report. It was already 2:40 in the middle of the night, and there were only 20 minutes left before the closing. As the price rose, the two sides entered a killing war, and the trading volume per minute was only a few minutes. Million. When Lu Feng heard this transaction volume, he could think with his toes that the person over there was on the phone again. Mr. Lu, we can't figure out the inventory volume of the short seller now. Let's just keep the price at 40 yuan. We can do a lot in one day, Manager Lee suggested. Manager Lee's suggestion was the safest. The two sides have been fighting until now, but the final result is reconciliation. They communicated privately on the phone to find a point acceptable to both parties, and directly exchanged Thai baht for US dollars in a large transaction. As for retail investors, let them trample on each other. This result is not acceptable to me. It's very simple to know their financial status. Doesn't he like to test, so I will test it too, Lu Feng asked Manager Lee, how much money do we still have? A little over 800 million, Manager Lee replied. Put up 300 million, Lu Feng said solemnly. Do you want to put the phone number in the dial language? Manager Lee asked. Publishing phone numbers? Who doesn't know who? Do you think this is hot money speculation? Use the maximum transaction number to top it up, just buy 3 or 4, Lu Feng said to him. In just 10 seconds, the total number of hands in the buy 3 and 4 positions was more than 3,000, and the total price exceeded 300 million. In the New York Stock Exchange, traders screamed when they saw this buying order. This is a provocation. Where can such a transaction happen? Isn't this just mockery? I have a lot of money, so come and throw it at me if you have the guts. At the Foreign Exchange Bureau of Thailand, everyone burst into laughter. I don't know whether to win or lose. Anyway, this moment is particularly exciting. Don't you want to smash it? 300 million are here, take out 12 billion baht. In Europe, Sean looked at the market and took a deep breath and said, this is not a trader's operation, this is definitely Lu Feng's operation. This is a provocation. If the other party has a large amount of funds, it will be traded away instantly. The risk is very high, the manager said from the sidelines. You don't understand this person. Put life and death aside. Let's feel good first. Sean thought for a while and sighed, it has come to this point. Everyone will definitely fight for the last dollar. It's good to feel good. The trader of the private equity institution was furious. How could he not be angry when looking at such a market situation? He reported to the manager next to him that these 300 million yuan were just sitting there. Whether he dared to smash them was a test for the short side. If he did not dare to smash them, it meant that no money. The phone started ringing again, and Robertson and Soros made a unanimous decision, smash it? Tens of billions of Thai baht were thrown out amidst the exclamations of the crowd. All transactions were completed, and no order was withdrawn. Then it turned its head downwards and pounced towards the position of 41 yuan again. It's done, a sell order worth tens of billions of baht. Manager Lee was so nervous that he couldn't speak clearly. Lu Feng's face darkened, and he ordered to Manager Lee, notify United Capital and Sun Hung Kai and let them prepare. The remaining 500 million funds must be defended for 41 yuan. As funds are once again put on the defensive, people all over the world are staring at their computers and their hearts are beating faster. This is destined to be a financial offensive and defensive battle that will be recorded in history. There are not many cards in everyone's hands. How to play in the next 10 minutes is very critical. Faced with this situation, Soros and Robertson had a disagreement. Soros believed that Lu Feng had no funds. They still had $600 million worth of baht left in their hands, and if they were defeated, they would plummet. I think this is a war of attrition. Where do they get so much money? You should think about this question carefully. What is Lu Feng's status in China? Is he really just a businessman? Robertson said to the phone, in this position you can talk about it, otherwise you will lose a lot. The most terrifying thing about financial transactions is that it goes against human nature. You can't have fear, otherwise you will scare yourself to death. Continuing to attack is the best defense. As long as the 41 position is broken, a large number of institutions will definitely rush in tomorrow. Short, if we retreat now, no one will attack. I told you, this world belongs to the winner, and everyone will help the winner and become a bigger winner, Soros said in a deep voice. Attack. Eat. Drop it. There was no time for the two of them to argue about right and wrong. Just 1 minute later, 20 billion baht was thrown out, eating up $500 million in an instant, and the baht plunged again. In the New York Stock Exchange, everyone screamed and looked in disbelief. The price of the Thai baht fell from 41 to 59 in an instant. It can be said that it fell off a cliff, and it is no exaggeration. Traders from United Capital and Sun Hung Kai were slow for more than 30 seconds, and countless retail investors swarmed in, becoming the second baton to suppress the Thai baht. What are they doing? Lu Feng yelled at the phone, are you dreaming? Manager Lee, go downstairs and slap the traders in my mouth. At that moment of diving, Sean felt that his heart had stopped, his vision turned black, and he almost fell to the ground. The situation was similar to that of the Thai Foreign Exchange Administration. United Capital invested 200 million yuan in the market, stabilizing the price at 59, and Lu Feng's phone calls were also connected to two companies. Back to 41. There's not much pressure from above, back to 41 in 1 minute, Lu Feng yelled at the phone. After spending $150 million, the price of the Thai baht has been rising straight up. As it rises, Soros has understood that he has lost, and he has lost completely. The remaining funds continue to be used to buy 3 and 4, Lu Feng said solemnly. We can't be sure of the other party's funds. We've already suffered losses the last 2 times. Such a reckless trading method will lead to big losses. Su Yorong's voice came from the phone. The brave will win when we meet on a narrow road. Recklessness is also a strategy. If he eats 300 million, I will take 500 million. If he eats 500 million, I will take another 300 million. Listen to me and put it up, Lu Feng said solemnly. I work in finance. Put it up. Latest website. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1225. Latest website. Su Yorong couldn't beat Lu Feng, so he had to order all the funds to be put in. Jenkin also listened to Lu Feng's words and put all the funds in buying 3 and 4. Provocative. A naked and persistent provocation. There was a lot of abuse in the New York Stock Exchange. They were all scolding the banker for having no brains and playing such a childish game. The person who had just chased him was already yelling. Since the banker has money, why did he let it go? Isn't this intentional to trick people? For a while, many people on the scene were saying that the buyer and seller were the same banker, and their purpose was to arbitrage retail investors. Where can you play like this? There are 7 minutes left before the close. Every second is painful for Wall Street. Soros has no money. What is more frightening than not having the bot is that confidence has been destroyed. No one knows how many hundreds of millions of dollars Lu Feng can still spend and put there. At this moment, both fund companies feel that there is a bottomless pit behind Lu Feng and they will never be able to sink it. Smash down hundreds of millions, and put out hundreds of millions more. The aura of failure in Robertson's heart has spread to Soros's heart. Trading is against human nature. In trading, your psychological defenses are challenged again and again. When your psychology collapses, the other party can take everything away. If Soros continues to find a way to get several $100 million in Thai baht tomorrow, it will not be particularly difficult, but he no longer has the confidence to trade. Call Lu Feng. Soros held one hand on the table, his eyes closed, and his voice was very low. The call was dialed. When Lu Feng heard the ringing of the phone, his tense heart suddenly relaxed a little. He waited for 10 seconds before picking up the phone and said, "Who is this?" "Mr. Lu, it's me," said the other end of the phone. "Let me first apologize for my recklessness. It's still the original agreement. We won't fight on the board and talk in private. How about it?" He. Lu Feng chuckled and said, "Sorry, I don't accept surrender. I am not making this call to surrender, but to consider the overall situation. Let me tell you, this matter cannot be magnified. You should understand this. Can you represent Thailand? Can you accept the consequences of the situation continuing?" Soros bluffed. Lu Feng laughed and said nothing when he heard these words. Ordinary people would definitely be deceived by him. He was not scared. You like to mention the background behind it so much, as if no one has it. Consequences? What are the consequences? Do you still have Thai baht in your hand? Lu Feng said solemnly. You really underestimate me. As long as I am willing, Thai baht will continue to pour in. You have to know that the Federal Reserve has a lot of Thai baht in reserve, Saras said. Really? Then let me tell you that the People's Bank of China also reserves a lot of US dollars, Lu Feng said solemnly. The person on the other end of the phone was obviously stunned. Lu Feng didn't give him a chance to say anything more and hung up the phone directly. This time it was revealed that they really had no money. Is the transaction over? Lu Feng asked towards the landline. There are 3 minutes left, Su Yorong replied. Now, let the Thai baht return to 30 yuan. Break down the psychological defenses of retail investors and small institutions first. They have no resistance at the moment and are rising straight up, Lu Feng said to the phone. There were only more than 2 minutes left before the closing. The originally quiet market became agitated again. A large number of buy orders appeared. In full view of the New York Stock Exchange, a long straight line was drawn out. In an instant, 60 million US dollars were traded. Standing on the at 30 yuan. Seeing this long straight line made many people collapse at the scene, and the price maintained at 30 yuan was even more disappointing. As the last second ended, there were sighs in the New York Stock Exchange, and everyone's face was full of decadence. But everyone is thinking at this moment that it will fall tomorrow. Their contract will expire in half a month, and it will definitely fall by then. When it was over, Lu Feng let out a long sigh of relief and slumped back in his chair. He had been highly nervous during the past few hours of trading. If he had a little free time, his opponent would give him a fatal blow. Lu Feng heard the applause coming from several phones. Everyone was very satisfied with Lu Feng's performance tonight. At the price of 30 yuan, Saras had no follow-up short selling power and had basically eliminated the short sellers. At 4 o'clock in the middle of the night in Thailand, the central bank announced that it would raise the savings interest rate to 11 points from now on. Compared with other Asian countries, this deposit interest rate is not very high. At the end of 1996, the deposit interest rate of domestic banks was 10 points. But as an Asian economic powerhouse, this interest rate has become more attractive to international capital. Lu Feng made a phone call with all parties. After the communication, fish bellies appeared on the horizon, and the night passed before he knew it. Lu Feng stood up, stretched out his body, lit a cigarette, and was about to go back to the bedroom to rest. His cell phone suddenly rang. He picked up the phone and said, "Who is this?" "Lu Feng, someone is suing you. You should be more careful when speaking in the future. Don't let others take advantage of you and make it look like we are trying to stand up to someone in private." The voice on the other end of the phone was a little low. "Are you from the Foreign Affairs Department?" Lu Feng guessed. "What do you think? The people over there called me overnight to inquire and said that we would mobilize the treasury for you to come forward." He mentioned the Federal Reserve first, so I definitely can't be a coward. Lu Feng laughed and said, "It's no big deal, right? No, with the current international situation, this doesn't even count. Tonight you..." Lu Feng briefly explained the situation. After hanging up the phone, it was almost 6 o'clock in the morning. His aunt had already woken up to cook. Lu Feng went downstairs. His aunt saw that he hadn't slept all night, so he said after a good meal, "How about a lot of time after breakfast?" He went to school by himself, while Lu Feng lay down to rest. With the fierce exchange of money in the Thai baht market, some departments in the United States could not sit still and publicly accuse Thailand of manipulating the exchange rate. Thailand also responded and expressed its confidence in stabilizing the exchange rate. The originally scheduled stock market part of the stock market and the port part were suspended. A series of temporary strategies such as trading suspensions will be gradually relaxed in the next 2 days. At 9 o'clock in the morning, Maha had a phone call with the United States. After many discussions, he hoped to promote reconciliation privately. Thailand also knows that being too tough will not lead to good results. If there is a step, get off it as soon as possible, and agreed on the phone. Lu Feng was still sleeping, but his name had already spread among the top financial executives in Europe and the United States. John also knew why Lu Feng never had a good talk with him. Domestic foreign affairs departments will naturally say nice things to the outside world. We hope that both sides can sit down and solve problems based on actual needs instead of adding to them. We are willing to provide a platform and opportunity for bilateral consultations. It was a noisy day. The west side got angry, the southeast side got tough, and the east side talked a little bit. Only retail investors looked at their accounts with dull eyes. In the evening, Lu Feng just woke up. After washing, he stood in front of his house and blew the sea breeze to wake up. It was already the end of December. The weather in Shenzhen had cooled down, and it was another year before he knew it. Duo came back with a skull bag on his back. Not long after entering the house, he took Lu Feng's cell phone and ran out, saying, "Dad, I have your phone number." Lu Feng answered the phone, and the Maha assistant on the other end briefly explained the situation. They had also contacted multiple fund companies on Wall Street. Although they were still very harsh, they were really eager to solve the problem. It was nothing more than holding us dollars in hand and unable to exchange them for Thai baht to exchange for the contract in the bank. Their contract expired in 3 days, which was December 31st. The Thai side gave this part of the profit to Sean. Both parties have almost the same amount of money, and it's up to them to see how much profit they can squeeze out. According to the thinking over there, 10% profit is the minimum. If redeemed at the exchange rate of 27 baht to $1, Sean should have an 18% profit. Their main costs are concentrated in 3 between 10 and 33. As for Lu Feng's part, he has to get it back through the foreign exchange market. Then there will be a stampede redemption by private equity institutions and retail investors. Regardless of the current price of 30 yuan, it can directly rise to 267 by then. Lu Feng's return on capital should be around 50%. This can be regarded as a favor for Lu Feng to help. Of course, Sean also hopes to exchange it back through the market, but throwing out such a large amount of funds may directly destroy the Thai baht, and people like Saras do not want to lose money too much. Lu Feng expressed his gratitude on the phone. After hanging up the phone, Lu Feng told Su Yorong and Jenkin the news. When they found out, they slapped their thighs with regret, their words full of annoyance for not investing enough in the first place. Lu Feng just smiled. In those suffocating minutes last night, they definitely regretted it. Finance is like this. If you make a profit, you will always feel that you invested less. If you lose, you will regret it. Let me tell you one more thing. Some retail investors and institutions have relatively long contracts, which may not expire until a month. So you can sell some now, but if you wait, the price will be higher. It won't be until the 25th. It's not impossible, Lu Feng said towards the phone. The other end of the phone agreed repeatedly, and their voices sounded a lot more relaxed. However, as soon as the foreign exchange market opened at 8 o'clock in the evening, the two companies began to sell slowly, and finally sold them all at a price of $29.50. Worry about long nights and many dreams. Lu Feng didn't worry so much. He just called manager Li and asked him to pay attention to the contract period and transaction volume. He could sell at a price of more than 27 yuan, but he must sell them all before January 20th out. At night, Zhang Xiaoyan faced a lot of folders and didn't know what she was busy with. She rarely spoke at home now, and she had lost a lot of weight. It was obvious that this new factory area was very consuming. At 9 o'clock in the evening, the phone rang in the living room at home. Lu Feng answered the phone and said, "Who is this?" "Mr. Lu, it's me, John," John's voice said with a hint of teasing. "You are done with your work now, can we talk?" Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1226. Latest website. Lu Feng did not answer him directly, but said, "It doesn't matter who you talk to. The conditions proposed by Mr. Wei were all proposed by me. I am trying my best to promote this matter. Jiafeng's current profitable patents as a whole, give it all to you. After you take over, it is equivalent to taking over 40% of the domestic color TV market share, 53% of the VCD market, and more than 10% of the home appliance market." "But you took away the semiconductor patent," John said solemnly. "Shouldn't we develop our own semiconductors? No matter how I develop, I still need to fit into the global semiconductor market in the end. Instead of surrounding my little bud like this, go and do it with Sony and Intel." Lu Feng, with a bit of anger, he said, "Now the world's largest lithography machine manufacturer is Sony. We know that Sony's lithography machines cannot be sold. If we buy ASML's, how much does it cost every year to maintain the lithography machine? I really can't figure out why you think so highly of me and think that I can surpass companies like Sony and Toshiba in the next few years, not to mention these international first-tier manufacturers. Even in 10 years, we will have companies like TSMC. Ability, I feel like I'm super capable." Lu Feng very sincerely analyzed the current world semiconductor landscape with John on the phone. Europe has the powerful Siemens, the United States has Intel, AMD, and a series of supporting companies in Silicon Valley, and Fuzhou is the semiconductor overlord. From a technical perspective, Sony is currently pursuing 157 nanometers, while ASML is working hard on wet etching. No matter which one of the two makes a breakthrough in the future, they should not focus on the small Jiafeng group. In terms of photoresist, packaging and testing, wafers, photoresist, and even the basic disciplines of optics, the country does not have much competitiveness. If nothing else, the country cannot even make a decent camera. The industry is very incomplete. John only knew a little bit about the semiconductor industry. After Lu Feng said this, he felt that even if Lu Feng was given 100 years, he might not be able to make a name for himself in the semiconductor field. "Then why do you want the semiconductor patent? You are holding on to it?" John asked curiously. "Look at you, it seems that you don't understand the national conditions. You are doing things one way in one place. I definitely don't believe that semiconductors can be done, but the higher UPS don't believe it. You said that the funds allocated are all money, that how easy is it to make money?" Lu Feng said proudly into the phone. "Besides, brother, do you think I am an ordinary person? Even if a chicken is ordered from above, I will still be the one eating chicken legs." John really believed what Lu Feng said and said he would contact him again in a few days. After hanging up the phone, John directly called the president of Siemens, hoping that they could help investigate the future development potential of Jiafeng Group. At 10 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng still couldn't sleep. After washing up, Zhang Xiaoyan entered the bedroom, lay on the bed and said, "Do you know you are going back to your home today? When can I take a break?" Lu Feng sighed. "Have you been resting? You haven't gone out either." Zhang Xiaoyan turned on the reading light, picked up an English dictionary from the bedside table, and picked up a textbook to read. "Why have you started learning English?" Lu Feng asked curiously. "Study overseas advanced technology. Many things are in English. I can't understand it. You don't know. Those guys sometimes fool me. I have to figure it out myself." Zhang Xiaoyan looked at it and said, "Su. Face activage. T." Lu Feng leaned over and read against her. Most of the translated book contained chemical vocabulary, some of which Lu Feng didn't know very well. He was so close that the fragrance of the shower gel she had just taken a bath penetrated into her nostrils. "Ahem. Would you like me to teach you?" Lu Feng asked. Zhang Xiaoyan ignored him and suddenly felt something was wrong. She raised her eyelids and glanced at him and said, I'll fall asleep after a while. If you can't sleep, go out and enjoy the sea breeze. Why am I blowing the sea breeze? I know that word, pronounced Libby, which means grease in this place. This sentence refers to the conventional decomposition methods and chemical reactions of grease. Hans, Zhang Xiaoyan stared at him and said. Hans, read ha. Di Lufeng looked at her and said. I mean your hands. You. Ha. Di. Lufeng said with innocent eyes. Where is it? Mimi. Zhang Xiaoyan frowned and pushed his hand away, closed the dictionary and said, You stay at home every day and are very busy, but I am tired. You have a day off tomorrow. You can't let the company move without you. There are so many things that you can't handle all by yourself. Lufeng didn't stop talking. What are you doing? Zhang Xiaoyan asked. Take off. You. Duh. We. Really tired, Zhang Xiaoyan said with some resistance. From now on, we will speak English to help you speak better, Lufeng suggested. Then I only know yes. Yes. It was already 11:30, the whole room was quiet, and Zhang Xiaoyan had fallen asleep. Lufeng put the dictionary beside her aside and silently went downstairs to light a cigarette. At this moment, Sean was negotiating with Saras. The two parties could not reach a consensus on the price. At about 1 o'clock in the middle of the night, Sean called Lufeng and told him that the talks had collapsed. He asked Lufeng not to sell the Thai baht in his hand. It's not a good time to stab someone in the back. Lufeng reassured him, and soon Saras called, hoping to get some baht from Lufeng for 30 yuan. Lufeng said that he only accepted the price of 25 yuan for the Thai baht in his hand, and he did not have any contracts or leverage and could keep it forever. The two parties broke up after a bad conversation, and Lufeng fell asleep in a daze at around 2 o'clock in the evening. In the next few days, Lufeng had a rare leisure time. In addition to tutoring Duo texts and English, he also taught Zhang Xiaoyan English in the evening. I have to say that her learning ability is still very good. After teaching some words a few times, she can understand the basic meaning. By the way, I looked through the planning information Zhang Xiaoyan brought back. The entire production plant covers an area of 170 acres. It is to build the largest daily chemical production base in the north. It also plans to sell overseas. It has conducted market research on surrounding countries. Big pile. After reading the information, Lufeng had only one feeling in his mind: Huasha was going bankrupt. In any industry or any enterprise, the fastest way to destruction is expansion. This is why there are century-old stores and no century-old private companies. Market expansion, companies expanding production, and personnel expansion require a long-term and stable demand market to eliminate these costs. Supportive. The problem is that market expansion will inevitably bring more competitors. If you want to take over the market, you have to accept continued losses. This is why capital accepts corporate losses. Once the market shrinks, this logic game cannot be played anymore. Large-scale layoffs cannot reduce losses. A large number of industrial lines, factories, and dealers are all costs. When you reach a dead end and declare bankruptcy, the economic cycle returns, the market begins to expand again, and a new round of people rush in and start businesses. The financial tide ebbs and flows, and we cannot just see the influential figures standing on the waves when the tide rises. Only when the tide ebbs can we know who is out to make money and who is out to have fun. Lufeng knew Huasha's fate, but he couldn't tell Zhang Xiaoyan. When she mentioned Huasha's future, her eyes were shining. In addition, the company had grown so big that it had hired a bunch of flattering subordinates who were painting her every day. Cake. It is the most hurtful thing to destroy a person's enthusiasm. The most important thing is that even if it goes bankrupt, it will only cost a few $100 million. 3 days passed by in a flash, and 1996 was already behind us. People turned on the TV and talked about this last day. Sean called and said that the two parties had made a private deal. People like Saras would not shed tears until they saw the coffin. At the end of the phone call, Sean said some New Year blessings. If there is such a good thing in the future, remember to look for him. Moreover, this trip helped those people make money, and Sean also improved his relationship a step further. By the way, he said some kind words for Lu Feng in front of those big bosses. If Lu Feng commits any crime in the future, he can hide in the Congo, and Menbo I asked my eldest brother to cover me. Lu Feng smiled and said nothing. Why did he still protect him? He will be no longer alive by this time next year. Zhang Xiaoyan was on a business trip again. It was the new year soon. Lu Feng took his aunt and Duo out for a Western meal. At this moment, a report was placed on John's table. It is a research report on the development trends of GFN Group in the semiconductor field. After careful investigation by Siemens, they believe that GFN Group is at the second-rate level in the world in the fields of chip design, architecture, photoresist, wafer, packaging and testing. As for the fields of optics, photolithography machines, etc., it has no value at all. It has taken more than 2 years to develop to this level, which is already considered very strong. However, the report still believes that GFN Group has no competitiveness at all in the semiconductor field. The development and technology of semiconductors are a reflection of national power. Even if Lu Feng has the ability to change the world, it will be of no use. If a country wants to develop semiconductors, it first needs strong international influence and cooperation with companies from other countries. Secondly, strong economic capabilities are needed. It is not just semiconductors that burn money, but also the consumer market. The per capita consumption power of China, consumption of semiconductors. According to the assessment of international professional organizations, China's per capita GDP is likely to reach half of Thailand's current GDP in 2007. They estimate that our per capita GDP in 1996 was about $700, and Thailand's GDP this year was more than $3,000. Based on the current Thai semiconductor market, they believe that if the domestic market wants to completely explode, it will have to wait until at least 2050, or even longer. This longer means that it will never happen. After John read it, he immediately made several copies of the survey and sent them to senior executives and some Wall Street companies. At the same time, crowds of people began to appear in Times Square in New York, and everyone was celebrating the upcoming new year. Zhang Fengxia stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling window and watched the crowds of people in Times Square not far away. Her mother's dissatisfaction came from the phone next to her. There was a pink child sitting on the children's bed, waving toys in his hands, with a smile on his face. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1227. Latest website. This child will be 1 year old soon. Where are the others? If he had any conscience, he wouldn't give you too stinky money and leave you here. You are the same. You are too weak-tempered and can't be visited. You can't even make a phone call. No. This child is about to start talking. After calling his mother, he can't find his father, Fengxia's mother yelled on the phone. I told you, he is very busy, and I don't want to disturb him at this time. Besides, he has many things to do, so he can't come here. Zhang Fengxia lowered her head and said. He's busy. He's as busy as the earth. He's just opening a company. How busy is he? If you ask me, you should just go back to China. Didn't he say he would take you back on a private jet? Let him send it? Fengxia's mother said, dissatisfied. It costs a lot of gas to go back and forth, Zhang Fengxia said lightly. You. Oh, who do you look like? Why did I give birth to such a thing like you? You also save gas money for others. You should pay more attention to yourself. Such a big yellow girl has a child. When others ask, I'm too embarrassed to mention it, I feel so ashamed. The voice on the phone was too loud, and the child suddenly started crying. Zhang Fengxia hurriedly walked over and hugged her, coaxing, "Oh, don't cry, Grandma is not being mean. My grandma is in charge. If you don't want to call me, I'll call him," Fengxia's mother said and hung up the phone. Zhang Fengxia coaxed the child and sat on the bed looking a little lonely. He hadn't called herself for a long time. No matter how busy he was, he wouldn't have time to make a phone call, right? Even if he doesn't care about himself, doesn't he even care about his children? The next day, Lu Feng woke up at 9 o'clock in the morning and had a quick meal. 1996 had just passed. Lu Feng had no time to miss it. He went to the company for a meeting today. Last night, John informed Gudley that according to the original plan Wei Yandan submitted the plan for consultation. As soon as he got in the car and before leaving, Lu Feng's cell phone rang. It was in this villa area. There was no guarantee that there would be a signal outside of here. There were 2 signal towers installed in this community, which was considered a company benefit. "Hello, who's there?" Lu Feng answered the phone and asked. "It's me, Lu Feng. It's already 1997. When are you going to marry Fengxia? Is there anyone like you? I've been left here for half a year without even a phone call. Are you considered a human being?" The head-piercing anger almost rushed out of the phone. "I've been really busy recently, and I forgot about it." "I'm sorry," Lu Feng apologized repeatedly. "Then give me some time. When will you marry me?" "I will definitely give Fengxia an explanation after I handle the matter. Don't worry about this matter, because we are at a critical moment now. The company will be split up soon, and we will go to Xiangjiang. I don't want to hear this from you. Since you still keep putting it off, I'll give you a time to have the wedding before June this year." Fengxia's mother set the time. "This matter still depends on the 2 of us." The person on the other end of the phone obviously didn't want to argue with Lu Feng anymore and hung up the phone with a curse. Lu Feng sat in the driver's seat and took a deep breath. He wanted to call Zhang Fengxia, but after calculating the time difference, she was probably asleep by now. Feeling a little irritable, I straightened my thoughts and drove to the company. In the conference room of the group headquarters, Gudley led a team in. During this period, they could be said to have investigated the company from bottom to top. The original management personnel who had been fired by Lu Feng had been newly opened by Gudley outside. A company of the company took it in. If he is rehired as an external employee, it can be said that Lu Feng of the current Jiafeng group is completely out of control. This can be felt from the way everyone in the company treats Lu Feng. "It's been a long time, Mr. Lu. You may not be able to attend this year's board meeting. Last time I took away the official seal, you never showed up again. You're a good cat at home," Gudley said provocatively. "It's not bad, I was busy with a few things." Lu Feng asked Wei Yandan, "Vice Mayor Lu is not here yet." "It should be soon." Mr. Lu's arrogance, "I still like your original unruly demeanor," Gudley continued to challenge. "Are you here to negotiate, or are you here to eat?" Lu Feng stared at him and said, "I don't want to be acquainted with you. If you think you can outplay me in this land, then let's not do it today. Let's talk. I believe that after tonight, John will send a more well-behaved person." There was a bit of fear in Gudley's expression. After all, this was a foreign country for him. It would not be a good ending if he really wanted to die in a foreign country. After waiting for a few minutes, Vice Mayor Lu came in with 2 people. After everyone sat down, the negotiation officially started. The issue regarding patent rights has been resolved, and neither party has much objection. Issues regarding factories, land, debts, funds, etc. are not too big either. On the legal side, a lawyer was invited to make a speech. After the whole discussion, There were only 2 issues. Question. We request the return of the private jet donated by Mr. John on behalf of Schroeder Investment Group at the board meeting in December 1995. The private jet is a conditional gift. The key is that the group's performance in 1996 is regarded as a gift. Condition. We have always been tolerant of our partners. If Mr. Liu continues to work for the company, the conditions for the gift can be relaxed. However, now that both parties have chosen to part ways, the private jet needs to be returned. Another question, the group headquarters budget for the R/U0026D company is approved in batches every year and then distributed to the R/U0026D company for the development of new products. In the first version of the R/U0026D company's budget, it is clearly written that it is $500 million per year. Mr. Liu illegally handed over $1.5 billion to the R/U0026D company in 3 batches in the same year. We require the R/U0026D company to return the 1997 budget of $570 million. After hearing these 2 items, Lu Feng snorted coldly. After calculating such details, he looked at the other party and said, "I would like to ask, what year is it now? Today is January 1, 1997. Have the R/U0026D company and GFN Group separated now?" Lu Feng asked again. "No," the other party's financial officer replied. "Then it's over. We're still one company now. Why do we need to return the 1997 budget? Even if the R/U0026D company is in the group for a day, it still costs money," Lu Feng said solemnly. "You can't spend $570 million in one day," the finance official frowned. "It's hard to talk about research and development. What if it's all spent? It can't be spent in one day. What about a month? Let's talk about it after the Chinese New Year," Lu Feng stared at him and asked. The other party's financial staff was speechless by Lu Feng's logic. Gudley said, "Mr. Liu, you are a person with status after all. Isn't it appropriate to mess around here? Am I being arrogant? You are reasonable, right? Then I will be reasonable with you," Lu Feng said to Gudley. "You can't just read the first version of the R/U0026D company's budget regulations stipulated in the board meeting, you should also read it. I signed with you in London the investment letter of intent and the letter of responsibility of both parties to the equity participation. Look with your eyes wide open at the conditions for the equity to take effect, the effective date of the voting rights of the board of directors, and the interim measures of the board of directors." Vice Mayor Liu sat next to Lu Feng, glanced at Lu Feng and said, "If you have something to say, don't curse." There was silence on the other side, as he kept flipping through the folders. Gudley pondered for a while and said, "Mr. Liu, we are here to negotiate, not to quarrel. We must ultimately solve the problem. Have you given me enough money? Since we have to follow the rules, let's follow the rules. You can pay 1 billion over first to make up for the money." Lu Feng leaned on his seat and stopped talking. "Make up 1 billion? John doesn't dare to throw any more money into this now, because he is afraid that Lu Feng will not privatize it once the money is in place. After all, he still has control over the board of directors." Vice Mayor Liu knew that the things going on here were unclear. It was just that in good times, everyone was inseparable, and everyone exceeded their authority. Now that things are bad, old scores are being settled. If we let this kind of thing go on, we won't be able to do it today next year. Do you want me to say something? Come up with a solution, which is nothing more than a sum of money and a private jet. Everyone takes a step back and wants to solve the problem as soon as possible. This is the best way. Let Mr. Liu choose." Liu the deputy mayor looked at Gudley and asked, "How is it? Schroeder's group is also under time pressure. John has promised GFN Group to Wall Street. After this period of time, if people don't buy it, they will really lose it. The scene was very quiet. Lu Feng was very dissatisfied with the result, but things were like this now. Breaking up was not honorable. After pondering for a long time, Lu Feng said, "No more private jets." "It wasn't yours in the first place," Gudley said. "Drive back, let John sit slowly, and tell him to pay attention and don't meet me in the air, or I will hit him to death," Lu Feng said with a bit of resentment. "The matter between you has been settled. What remains is the municipal requirement. First of all, no layoffs, not within 1 year. Secondly, there is the tax issue. Starting from this year, the tax exemption has ended. Of course, we welcome foreign investment. I can give you some discounts," Deputy Mayor Lu said. "Once GFN Group becomes a foreign investor, it will be able to enjoy more preferential treatment than Lu Feng did before. This is also the reason why fake foreign investment was rampant in the 1990s. Of all the conditions provided by the local government, there was only one requirement, which was to maintain employment." After more than an hour, Vice Mayor Lu finally finished the introduction. The meeting lasted from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., with no food in between. As the meeting ended, Lu Feng stood up and walked out. The remaining matters required coordination between the legal teams and financial teams of both parties. After completing the procedures, Lu Feng only needed to sign. Walking out of the conference room, Vice Mayor Lu followed him and said, "It's better to resolve it as soon as possible. If you delay it, it will only bring GFN down. If you give up a plane, so many people will keep their jobs. I just didn't expect that you foreign investors would have so many discounts, some of which I have never enjoyed before." Lu Feng glanced at him and said, "Do you think it's still the era when you rose to prominence? Nowadays, internal funds don't have that much room. If you ask for external investment, your era is over," Vice Mayor Lu said calmly. "Is it over?" Lu Feng smiled and said, "Don't worry, in a few years, I will come back as a Hong Kong investor." "Hong Kong capital? Do you speak Hong Kong?" "What a shame." Lu Feng stopped and looked at him and said, "Is it authentic?" Latest website. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1228. Latest website. Vice Mayor Lu stopped and stared at Lu Feng motionless. Lu Feng chuckled, reached out and patted his shoulder and said, "I'm kidding you. Actually, it would be good for you to delay this matter. As far as I know, some financial media in Europe started to boast about GFN's value half a year ago," Vice Mayor Lu said. "I postpone it until March. Maybe I can keep the private jet. The question is, how many months can GFN survive in his current state? Let everyone work with peace of mind." Lu Feng sighed and said, "Standing in this position, I no longer think about money, I also have to think about the overall situation." Vice Mayor Lu smiled and praised, "The future is bright." Lu Feng watched him leave and went to Wei Yandan's office. Before signing the privatization agreement, they all applied for resignation. In the past few days, they needed to clearly divide their salary, bonuses, equity incentives, and other income. In addition, they had some veterans who wanted to take them with them. Lu Feng did not agree or refuse. He just said that he would wait and see based on the development of the company. After the settlement here, they will go back to spend the new year with peace of mind. After the new year, they will all go to work in Xiangjiang. Then there will be more important tasks. Lu Feng returned home at around 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was the New Year's Eve again. His family called him to ask if he would go back this year. Lu Feng had not gone back for 3 years. This year, there is a high possibility of going back. The company has almost taken care of it. Lu Feng thought for a while and said, "Otherwise, you can come here to celebrate the new year this year, and I will take your second wife over. Lu Feng really didn't want to deal with the sophistication of the people in the village. What's more, when he went back now, he would definitely be looking for them in the city and county, and maybe the province would also ask him to go there. For the two elders, it doesn't matter where they celebrate the new year. What matters is that they stay with their son, and they agreed repeatedly on the phone. Lu Feng originally thought about flying over directly, but when he realized that his plane was gone, he had to book flights for the two of them. The next day, the media announced that Jia Feng's breakup war, which lasted for more than 40 days, had finally come to an end, ending with Lu Feng's privatization of the R/U0026D company. People in the industry are inquiring about the detailed terms. Some people say that Lu Feng lost completely this time. All Jia Feng's profitable products and patents were taken away, while the most expensive semiconductors were kept in his hands. Some people who know what Lu Feng has been busy with in the past few years say that the country is likely to start subsidizing semiconductors massively, and Lu Feng is preparing for this. There were many people who made a special call to inquire about the inside story, and wanted to know if now was the best time to get involved in semiconductors. Lu Feng just smiled and told him, "Don't play if you don't have money." At around 9 o'clock in the evening, Lu Feng first called manager Li. The Thai bot in his hand had been sold by 780%, and the prices were between 26 yuan and 27 yuan. These days, retail investors have been fleeing in a stampede. Time. After hanging up the phone, Zhang Xiaoyan hadn't come back yet. Lu Feng estimated that it would be around 11 o'clock again, so he picked up his phone and went out, dialing the long-lost number. "Hey," Zhang Fengxia said in a gentle voice, "have you eaten yet?" Lu Feng was stunned and said in surprise, "How did you know it was me?" "Only you know this mobile phone number." "Did my mother call you?" Zhang Fengxia sighed and said, "Did she scold you?" "Don't forget it." "No, everything your mother said is right. No matter how busy I am, I shouldn't leave you behind. The company completed the split yesterday, and I have to shift my focus to Xiangjiang. I bought a villa there. If you're not used to staying here, come back," Lu Feng said to the phone. "Sister Xiaoyan, are you going?" Zhang Fengxia asked. "Huasha is expanding now. She is very busy and can't go. The two places are not far away." Lu Feng didn't know what to say. He took a deep breath and said, "I know you want a result, but now I'm so busy with chores, It's okay, just think about it slowly and tell me when you think about it." Zhang Fengxia changed her subject and said, "You haven't heard Mia Miao's voice yet, come and say a word to Dad." Yeah, 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 yeah. It's so cute. She can't speak yet, but now she can sit. A chirping sound came from the other end of the phone. Zhang Fengxia kissed her and said proudly that her mother was a good baby. "I understand," she said. "She wanted an invoice," Lu Feng joked. The other end of the phone chuckled twice, and the awkward atmosphere of not being contacted for a long time eased a little. Zhang Fengxia seemed to have opened up the conversation, talking about what Miao Miao had been doing in the past few months. It seemed that her mission in this world suddenly became to protect her. This child. Lu Feng didn't say much. He just listened to what she bought for the child, which things were more expensive for the child, and which area of skin had eczema again. They were all trivial matters of daily life. The sound of a car came from behind. Lu Feng turned around and glanced. Zhang Xiaoyan parked the car in the parking space in front of the door, got out of the car with a tired look, glanced at him and walked straight towards home. "It's getting late. If you want to come back, you can go to Xiangjiang. It's better to come back. The Chinese New Year is coming soon. You should also reunite with your parents," Lu Feng suggested. "Let's forget it. The child is too young and I'm afraid it will be damaged by flying." Lu Feng explained to her that she could fly, but she, a top student, still didn't believe it, as if the whole world was harming her child. I'll call you in 2 days. Okay. Hang up. It's already late over there. Go and have a rest. Lu Feng took a deep breath and asked, is the money still enough? I'll have someone add more money to your account. The child needs money, and you need money too. I'm rich, so I really don't need it, Zhang Fengxia refused repeatedly. Lu Feng neither agreed nor refused. He just responded twice and hung up the phone. Lu Feng called Manager Li directly, told him the account number and asked him to transfer $2 million to the account. It was almost 12 o'clock. When Lu Feng returned home, Duo and Zhang Xiaoyan shouted, Grandpa and Grandma are coming to celebrate the New Year. We can't go back to the village. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at Lu Feng, who walked in, and asked, you want them to come celebrate the New Year? Yeah, I haven't been back for almost 3 years, right? I don't want to be bothered by people when I go back, so I might as well take it over. It just so happens that they have never been to Shenzhen. Lu Feng sat down and said. Zhang Xiaoyan sat there silently. Duo was fussing in her arms and wanted to go back to the village. After a while, she finally said, then I will go back to celebrate the New Year. Lu Feng wanted to say something when he heard this, but he didn't know what to say. The two have divorced and their parents are here. How should they get along? Duo, on the other hand, was spinning back and forth excitedly and wanted to go back to the village during the winter vacation. After 12 o'clock, Lu Feng stood up and said, go to sleep. As the days passed, various New Year greeting advertisements began to appear on TV. The familiar New Year's flavor came on time, but now Lu Feng had no intention of experiencing the New Year's flavor. He sometimes wonders why in the first year after he came back, he felt that celebrating the New Year in this era was better than in the previous life, but now he felt so dull. Maybe I have experienced too much. These things happen every year, day after day, year after year. Whenever the season comes, that kind of atmosphere will come as promised. Sometimes it makes people feel like they are living a year day after day. Year after year, this life has passed. During these days, Lu Feng called Zhang Fengxia every now and then. Zhang Xiaoyan was still busy at the factory. On January 23, just a few days after Duo's winter vacation, she left with Duo. After going to Tianjin, she had to keep an eye on the new factory equipment there. Then she would go back to her hometown directly from Tianjin. On January 30, the privatization agreement between GFN Group and the R/U0026D company was officially completed. The two parties signed the agreement. John flew over to sign the agreement. During this meeting, the two did not exchange a word. From the initial friendship to the current silence, in just a few years, this cross-border cooperation has officially broken down. Lu Feng helped his parents book tickets for the 31st, and now all he has to do is wait for their arrival. Lu Feng was the only one left in the empty villa. His aunt hadn't been back for almost a year. Lu Feng gave her some money and took the train back 2 days ago. Lu Feng, who was bored, called Zhang Xiaoyan and chatted with Duo for more than half an hour. As soon as he hung up, a call came in. Hello? Who is there? Lu Feng asked. Me. Your mother. Su Yorong's voice was full of displeasure. If I don't contact you, why don't you contact me? The new year is coming soon, and after the new year, I will be your financial supporter. Our relationship doesn't require these false feelings, right? I've been waiting for your call for several days. Have you sold those Thai baht? Now the Thai baht has plummeted, breaking 30. Su Yorong asked. I sold it before the 20th. It's not a big deal if I dive. I don't have enough short selling power. I should be able to hold on to 35 yuan. They can accept this result, Lu Feng said. How do you spend the Chinese New Year? With your wife and kids on the hotbed, Su Yorong sighed and said, you are really a stranger in a foreign land. You miss your family even more during the festive season. You can't spend it alone on weekdays, but when the new year comes, the reunion of every family reveals my loneliness. Go home. Didn't you go back the year before last? Lu Feng wondered. Don't mention it, once you have money, your family will be different. I left a lot of money last time I went back. You also know that I have many brothers and sisters, because the money is almost blowing my brains out. Su Yorong sighed. Seems a little helpless. It's almost the same, so I brought my parents over to celebrate the new year, and she took the kids back to her hometown. That's fine, Lu Feng comforted her and said, how should I put it, we are not ordinary people anyway, and these things at home are similar. Su Yorong seemed to have caught something in these words and asked, has your wife from the village gone back? What's wrong? It's okay, hey. The other end of the phone laughed. Lu Feng always felt that something was not right. Latest website. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 1229. Latest website. Su Yorong didn't say anything and hung up the phone. Lu Feng made himself a cup of tea out of boredom and went to sleep after drinking it. The next morning, Lu Feng packed up and drove to the airport. After arriving for about an hour, he finally saw an aunt wearing a floral cotton padded jacket and a knitted hat at the exit. She looked out of place here. Mom! This way, Lu Feng shouted. Oh, son, over here, where are you going? Mom pulled Dad over. Both of them were dressed in cotton padded clothes and looked extremely hot. Although Shenzhen has become colder now, Lu Feng also just wearing a coat. Why are you wearing so many clothes? Didn't I tell you on the phone that it's much warmer here than over there? Lu Feng hurriedly took the big and small bags and said. Your dad and I didn't wear enough clothes at first. We tried it when we went out, but it didn't work. It was too cold. We'd rather go hot, Mom explained. A thin layer of sweat had accumulated on the tip of Lu Feng's father's nose. He took off his hat and fanned it vigorously. Go back and change clothes. Lu Feng took his things and walked out. It was the first time for the two of them to fly on a plane in their lives, and they chatted with Lu Feng along the way. After arriving home and changing clothes, the old couple looked around Lu Feng's house and commented a few words from time to time. Mom came down from upstairs and asked Lu Feng, where's Duoduo? When is school over? Duoduo has already gone on winter vacation and is with Xiao Yan, Lu Feng said awkwardly. That's fine. You're so busy, how can you take care of your children? When your aunt goes back, there won't even be anyone to take care of you. Let me see. Dad sat down, picked up Lu Feng's cigarette, studied it and said, let's let him know this year your mother should come and take care of you, she has nothing to do at home. We'll talk about this later. Maybe we won't be here after the new year. It's noon. Let's go out to eat. Let's eat Western food. Lu Feng avoided some topics. During lunch, Lu Feng ordered a New Year's Eve dinner at the hotel. In the afternoon, he accompanied the two of them for a walk on the beach. They talked about nothing more than relatives. Lu Feng was on the side and agreed. He was also talking about asking him to marry another person quickly and have a child. He looked like he was getting older. While chatting, the day was finally over. Rooms were arranged for the two of them. Lu Feng went back to the room and fell asleep. When he regained consciousness, Lu Feng could only hear the loud laughter at home, which was constantly coming from downstairs. In addition, there were children outside occasionally setting off firecrackers, which was really annoying. Are these two crazy? What time is it? Are you laughing so loudly and having such a cheerful personality? Lu Feng stood up and rubbed his eyes, put on his autumn clothes and went out of the room. He stood on the fence on the second floor and went to look downstairs. He was shocked. Su Yorong was sitting on the sofa, with Lu Feng's parents sitting on the left and right. There were various fruits and dried fruits on the table. Lu Feng's mother was holding Su Yorong's hand, her mouth almost splitting to the back of her head. "Son, are you awake?" Mom raised her head and looked at Lu Feng and said, "Why don't you tell us such a good thing?" "What's going on?" Lu Feng asked, confused. "That's the way he is. Even though he's strong in his career, he's quite shy emotionally." Su Yurong looked at Lu Feng and said with a smile, "You're awake, are you hungry? I'll cook for you." Seeing her look like that, Lu Feng knew in his heart that this was obviously a person who was depressed during the new year and was just having fun with himself. "No, no, just buy whatever you want to eat. I bought some food this morning and I'll cook it for you." My mother stood up and went to the kitchen with a smile. After Lu Feng washed up, he went downstairs and saw his father still trying to persuade Su Yurong to eat fruit. Lu Feng sat there and stared at her. He had to say that this outfit was definitely not a spur-of-the-moment move, but was well prepared. Wearing an autumn floral dress, her naturally droopy hair simply tied up, and Xiaojia Biu's makeup, people who didn't know her would think she was a yellow-flowered girl from someone else's family. "Let's go for a walk," Lu Feng stared at her and said. "Auntie, let me help you." Su Yurong ignored Lu Feng at all, stood up and walked towards the kitchen, saying, "It's okay, I do this all the time at home. Don't look at me now as the richest man in Xiangjiang. I also come from a poor family, and I used to carry water, make fires, and cook, so I was proficient in everything." Lu Feng frowned and kept looking towards the kitchen. Dad lit a cigarette, smoked silently, and whispered, "Lu Feng, Yurong is a good girl. Although she had a hard time growing up, she is diligent and studious. She graduated with a doctorate at the age of 26. These days, it's not something ordinary people can do in 1 year." "Doctor," Lu Feng laughed. "Why are you laughing? What were your grades when you were in school? She is good looking and has a good mind." "What a good girl." Dad looked at him and said with a bit of hatred, "Stop being picky, such a simple girl, it's hard to find one these days." At noon, a table of dishes was served. My mother looked at Su Yurong and was very satisfied. They were polite to each other. Su Yurong stood aside and said, "You sit down first. If the elders don't sit down, I don't dare to sit down. That's what great tutors are like." After a polite conversation, he finally sat down. Lu Feng looked at her and whispered, "That's almost it. Eat, eat, you are welcome. Eat more, just like at home. Don't be polite," my mother said politely. While eating, Su Yurong served her 2 elders with food from time to time, chatting about her childhood. When she was a child, her family was poor, but she liked piano and couldn't afford it. Later, when she had the opportunity to study abroad, she taught herself piano and violin. By the way, learned English. During this meal, Lu Feng didn't say a word. He just ate with his head covered. After almost eating, Su Yurong started to praise the 2 elders for their kindness. They were very friendly when they met. He talked about how he had received support from an old couple when he was a child. Lu Feng's parents look very much alike. After finally finishing the meal, Su Yurong rushed to wash the dishes again, but Lu Feng's parents refused to let them go. After a polite meal, Su Yurong didn't wash a single dish or chopsticks. "Auntie, let me take you out for a walk in the afternoon and buy some new clothes," Su Yurong said to the 2 of them. Lu Feng lit a cigarette, stood in front of her and said, "You are selling these 2 people abroad now, and I am afraid that these 2 people will happily count the money for you." Su Yurong rolled her eyes at him and asked, "Are you pure?" "Lao Baike is pretending to be Hai Ching," Lu Feng said angrily. The 3 of them had a great time shopping around all afternoon. It wasn't until the evening that they called Lu Feng back to tell him that they were eating out and asked him to rush over. At 10 o'clock in the evening, the noisy day was finally over. Lu Feng was just about to go back to the house when his mother pulled him into her room. The old couple asked Lu Feng, "How are you and Yurong?" "What do you think?" Lu Feng looked at the 2 of them and said, Don't get involved in this matter. I understand it myself. What do you understand? Where can you find such a good girl? She needs education, wealth, good looks, and a good figure, but you haven't seen that. But, my mother said with an exaggerated expression, I tell you, you can definitely have a son. Let's talk about it after the new year, Lu Feng said foolishly. Everyone is here, so they must be willing. Don't be too arrogant. We have made a fortune over the years, but no one can match their conditions. I have already spoken to Yurong and will stay for the new year. My mother said to Lu Feng, what your father means is that you also go to his house after the Chinese New Year and meet your parents. Lu Feng had no choice but to say, she lied to you. Those PhDs and richest men are all fake. You two should take a rest quickly and don't listen to her nonsense. How is that possible? They spent tens of thousands on us in one afternoon, spoke all in English, and said they would take us to travel to Hong Kong, my mother said very stubbornly. Lu Feng knew that it was useless to say anything to them now. Anyway, what Su Yurong told her was true and false. It was unrealistic for Lu Feng to deny them all. He had no choice but not to argue with these two people, stood up and returned to the room. Not long after he lay down, Su Yurong opened the door and got in. With a wicked smile on his face, he said, are your parents very satisfied with me? If you want me to live an uneasy life, don't live it anymore. Lu Feng looked at her and said angrily, are you willing to play like this? Ouch, you're not angry anymore. Why are you really angry? Su Yurong sat on the bedside and patted Lu Feng's chest with his hand and said, isn't this making the two old people happy? I told you this afternoon, my family it's a twin gene, which will definitely give her 2 grandchildren at once. You just lied to an old man and an old lady. You want to spend the new year here and don't cause any trouble for me. Just in time, you take them out for a while. I'm too lazy to go out, Lu Feng said to her. That has to be good. There are a lot of people during the Chinese New Year, and I'm tired from walking. If you don't let me have fun, am I working for nothing? Su Yurong was already touching it as he spoke. Oh, don't mess around, they are sleeping downstairs. Lu Feng hurriedly hid behind. Su Yurong climbed into bed and saw her hair cover, water cup and daily necessities on Zhang Xiaoyan's bedside table. She turned over and lay down there, saying, I'm going to sleep here tonight and feel what's going on in this half of the bed. Taste. Are you a pervert? Lu Feng sat up and looked at her with a frown. Don't you think it's exciting? Su Yurong smiled slightly and pushed Lu Feng down on the bed. The two of them started to make a fuss. Su Yurong pinched Lu Feng's hands and got on top. Her hair was spread out to block her sight. She picked up the hair cover from the bedside table and tied her hair up. Lu Feng took the opportunity to push her away. Before he could say anything, Su Yurong came up to her again. The two of them made a bit of noise, and they could already be heard downstairs. Lu Feng's mother sat on the bed and raised her head to look at the ceiling, her eyes closed tightly, and she was mumbling. Twins. Twins. Latest website.